Don't call this a trading card. That's my... Okay. Okay, I'll follow up with you later. Are you serious about it? Or are you?
I actually am. I don't know if there's a market for it, but it'll be great for me.
Write it down. Manifest it. Manifest it. Write your mission vision before we start. And we'll get it going right in the break. Right in Lowy Bazaar. I'm serious. Whatever you can conceive of in this room, your desires, goals, whatever, it's a good time during Kartik to make a list of your spiritual ambitions right here. They'll all manifest by Giriraj's mercy. Guaranteed, or your money back from this retreat. So, by the grace of Srila Prabhupada, we have yet another opportunity to hear him speak his emotional ecstasies on the Srimad Bhagavatam. And we'll be taking up our reading today on the consultation of Karuna Sagar 3. Okay. I'm going to have to bring you wherever I go. (323) 3 for those who are keeping track. And this is the third canto, and it has 33 chapters. Working sanely and diligently, she pleased her very powerful husband, giving up all lust, pride, envy, greed, sinful activities, and vanity. Here are some of the qualities of a great husband's great wife. Kardama Muni is great by spiritual qualification. Such a husband is called Tejiyamsam, most powerful. Although a wife may be equal to her husband in advancement in spiritual consciousness, she should not be vainly proud. Sometimes it happens that the wife comes from a very rich family, as did Devahūti, the daughter of Emperor Swayambhuva Manu. She could have been very proud of her parentage, but that is forbidden. The wife should not be proud of her parental position. She must always be submissive to the husband and must give up all vanity. As soon as the wife becomes proud of her parentage, her pride creates great misunderstanding between the husband and wife, and their nuptial life is ruined. Devahūti was very careful about that, and therefore it is said here that she gave up pride completely. Devahūti was not unfaithful. The most sinful activity for a wife is to accept another husband or another lover. Chanakya Pandit has described 4 kinds of enemies at home. If the father is in debt, he is considered to be an enemy. If the mother has selected another husband in the presence of her grown-up children, she is considered to be an enemy. If the wife does not live well with her husband but deals very roughly, then she is an enemy. And if a son is a fool, he is an enemy. In family life, father, mother, wife, and children are assets. But if the wife or mother accepts another husband in the presence of her husband or son, then according to Vedic civilization, she is considered an enemy. A chaste and faithful woman must not practice adultery. That is a greatly sinful act. The daughter of Manu, who is everyone okay?
Yes.
I'm not convinced.
Yes.
I don't even know what's going on outside. Nor can I know.
We can hear the mutterings. They seem pretty happy.
Mutterings doesn't indicate happiness. The daughter of Manu, who was fully devoted to her husband, looked upon him as greater even than providence. Thus, she expected great blessings from him. Having served him for a long time, she grew weak and emaciated due to her religious observances. Seeing her condition, Kardama, the foremost of celestial sages, was overcome with compassion and spoke to her in a voice choked with great love. The wife is expected to be of the same category as the husband. She must be prepared to follow the principles of the husband, and then there will be happy life. If the husband is a devotee and the wife is materialistic, there cannot be any peace in the home. The wife must see the tendencies of the husband and must be prepared to follow him. From Mahabharata we learn that when Gandhari understood that her would-be husband Dhritarashtra was blind, she immediately began to practice blindness herself. Thus she covered her eyes and played the part of a blind woman. She decided that since her husband was blind, she must also act like a blind woman. Otherwise she would be proud of her eyes, and her husband would be seen as inferior. The word samanuvrata indicates that it is the duty of a wife to adopt the special circumstances in which the husband is situated. Of course, if the husband is as great as Kardama Muni, then a very good result accrues from following him. But even if the husband is not a great devotee like Kardama Muni, if it is the wife's duty to adapt herself according to his mentality. That makes married life very happy. It is also mentioned herein that by following the strict vows of a chaste woman, Princess Devahūti became very skinny, and therefore her husband became compassionate. He knew that she was the daughter of a great king, and yet was serving him just like an ordinary woman. She was reduced in health by such activities, and he became compassionate and addressed her as follows. Kardama Muni said, O respectful daughter of Swayambhuva Manu, today I am very much pleased with you for your great devotion and most excellent loving service. Since the body is so dear to embodied beings, I am astonished that you have neglected your own body to use it on my behalf. It is indicated here that one's body is very dear. Yet Devahūti was so faithful to her husband that not only did she serve him with great devotion, service, and respect, but she did not even care for her own health. That is called selfless service. It appears that Devahūti had no sense pleasure even with her husband. Otherwise she would have not deteriorated in health. Acting to facilitate Kardama Muni's engagement in spiritual elevation, she continually assisted him, not caring for bodily comfort. It is the duty of a faithful and chaste wife to help her husband in every respect, especially when the husband is engaged in Krishna consciousness. In this case, the husband also amply rewarded the wife. This is not to be expected by a woman who is the wife of an ordinary person. Text 7. Kardama Muni continued, I have achieved the blessings of the Lord in discharging my own religious life and austerity, meditation and Krishna consciousness. Although you have not yet experienced these achievements, which are free from fear and lamentation, I shall offer them all to you because you are engaged in my service. Now, just look at them. I am giving you the transcendental vision to see how nice they are. Purport. Devahūti engaged only in the service of Kardama Muni. She was not supposed to be so advanced in austerity, ecstasy, meditation, or Krishna consciousness, but imperceptibly she was sharing her husband's achievements, which she could neither see nor experience. Automatically she achieved these graces of the Lord. What are the graces of the Lord? It is stated here that the graces of the Lord are abhaya, free from fearfulness. In the material world, if someone accumulates $1 million, he is always full of fear because he is always thinking, what if the money is lost? But the benediction of the Lord, bhagavat-prasāda, is never to be lost. It is simply to be enjoyed. There is no question of loss. One simply gains and enjoys gaining. Bhagavad-gītā also confirms this. When one achieves the grace of the Lord, the result is that sarva-duḥkhāni, all distresses are destroyed. When situated in the transcendental position, one is freed from the two kinds of material diseases, hankering and lamentation. This is also stated in Bhagavad-gītā. After devotional life begins, we can achieve the full result of love of Godhead. Love of Krishna is the highest perfection of bhagavat-prasāda, or divine mercy. This transcendental achievement is so greatly valuable that no material happiness can compare to it. Prabodhānanda Sarasvatī said that if one achieves the grace of the Lord, of Lord Caitanya, he becomes so great that he does not care a fig even for the demigods. He thinks of monism as hellish, and for him the perfection of controlling the senses is as easy as anything. Heavenly pleasures become to him no more than stories. Actually, there is no comparison between material happiness and transcendental happiness. By the grace of Kardama Muni, Devahūti experienced actual realization simply by serving. We get a similar example in the life of Narada Muni. In his previous life, Narada was a maidservant's son, but his mother was engaged in the service of great devotees. He got the opportunity to serve the devotees, and simply by eating the remnants of their foodstuff and carrying out their orders, he became so elevated that in the next life he became the great personality Narada. For spiritual achievement, the easiest path is to take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master and to serve him with heart and soul. That is the secret of success. As stated by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his 8 stanzas of prayer to the spiritual master, Yasya prasadad bhagavat-prasāda. By serving or receiving the grace of the spiritual master, one receives the grace of the Supreme Lord. By serving her devotee husband, Kardama Muni, Devahūti, Devahūti shared in his achievements. Similarly, a sincere disciple, simply by serving a bona fide spiritual master, can achieve all the mercy of the Lord and the spiritual master simultaneously. Text 8, Kardama Muni continued, what is the use of enjoyments other than the Lord's grace? All material achievements are subject to be annihilated simply by a movement of the eyebrows of Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By your principle of devotion to your husband, you have achieved and can enjoy transcendental gifts very rarely obtained by persons proud of aristocracy and material possessions. Purport. Lord Caitanya recommended that the greatest achievement of human life is to achieve the grace of the Lord, love of God. He said, Prema Pumarto Mahan. To achieve love of Godhead is the highest perfection of life. The same perfection is recommended by Kardama Muni to his wife. His wife belonged to a very aristocratic royal family. Generally, those who are very materialistic or who possess material wealth and prosperity are unable to appreciate the value of transcendental love of God. Although Devahūti was a princess coming from a very great royal family, fortunately she was under the supervision of her great husband, Kardama Muni, who offered her the best gift which can be bestowed in human life, the grace of the Lord, or love of God. This grace of the Lord was achieved by Devahūti by the goodwill and satisfaction of her husband. She served her husband, who is a great devotee and saintly person, with great sincerity, love, affection, and service, and Kardama Muni was satisfied. He willingly gave love of God, and he recommended that she accept it and enjoy it, because he had already achieved it. Love of God is not an ordinary commodity. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is worshipped by Rupa Goswami because he distributed love of God, Krishna Prema, to everyone. Rupa Goswami praised him as Mahavadanya, a greatly munificent personality. Look up munificent, please. Because he was freely distributing to everyone love of Godhead, which is achieved by wise men only after many, many births. Krishna Prema, Krishna consciousness, is the highest gift which can be bestowed on anyone whom we presume to love. One word used in this verse, Nijadharma Dohan, is very significant. NDD. Devahūti is the wife of Kardama Muni. Devahūti, as the wife of Kardama Muni, achieved an invaluable gift from her husband because she was very faithful to him. For a woman, the first principle of religion is to be faithful to her husband. If fortunately the husband is a great personality, Then the combination is perfect, and the lives of both the wife and the husband are at once fulfilled. Yes. Panditji?
Munificent adjective of a gift or sum of money, larger or more generous than is usual or necessary. A munificent gesture, special use of a person very generous. Origin is from late 16th century, from Latin munificent, stem of munificentior, comparative of munificious, bountiful, from munus, gift.
Yeah, but how? Where else do you recognize that stem?
Oh.
They need entertainment out there. You got to use the microphone. Entertain.
Right, so we were saying, we looked up munificent.
Munis
means gift.
M-U-N-I-S means
Gift.
M-U-N-U-S. Munis. Tell me where else that?
Remuneration.
Remuneration. Okay, good. Two more and you're gold.
Perhaps.
Money?
Maybe money.
Look
Have
in
to
the
look that one
OED. Okay. Does money come from munis? Probably. Let's see. Okay, what else?
It says municipal.
Municipal. Means?
Pertaining to a citizen of a free town. In this connection, it means service performed for the community, duty, work.
And it comes from munis.
It comes from Old Latin monis.
Huh?
M-O-E.
M-O-E?
N-U-S.
N-U-S.
Monis.
Money is different.
Okay, hold on.
It sometimes means service, duty, or burden.
Oh, munis. Okay, tell us where money comes from.
Money comes from mid-13th century moni, or monie, M-O-N-I-E. Funds means anything convertible into money.
Can't give you any points for that one. Well, actually, we'll give you 5 points for such a good try. Okay, so in context, it's mentioned here the Lord is the most munificent. Where's the word that we just, when we read it? Say what? Normally I'll need to know which paragraph, 1, 2, or 3. That means the penultimate. Okay, love of God is not an ordinary commodity. This is a nice paragraph. We're just going to look at it for a second. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was worshipped by Rupa Goswami because he distributed love of God, Krishna Prema, to everyone. Rupa Goswami praised him as Mahavadanya, a greatly munificent personality. It means more generous than usual. Because he was freely distributing to everyone love of God, which is achieved by wise men only after many, many births. Krishna Prema, Bhagavata, that's your brand. Krishna consciousness is the highest gift which can be bestowed on anyone whom we presume to love. What a beautiful, and just the metaphor of it being a commodity. It's there in that section where the storehouse is said to contain the love of God, and then they break in and they distribute it to everybody. Yeah, you can just give it to somebody. So Lord Caitanya is Mahavadanya. Vadanya. Hope you have a good Sanskrit dictionary too. Okay, we're continuing. Upon hearing the speaking of her husband, who excelled in knowledge of all kinds of transcendental science, innocent Devahūti was very satisfied. Her smiling face shining with a slightly bashful glance, she spoke in a choked voice because of great humility and love. Purport, it is said that if one is already engaged in Krishna consciousness and is rendering transcendental loving service to the Lord, then it can be supposed that he has finished all the recommended courses of austerity, penance, religion, sacrifice, mystic yoga, and meditation. Devahūti's husband was so expert in the transcendental science that there was nothing for him to argue about. And when she heard him speak, she was confident that since he was very much advanced in devotional service, he had already surpassed all transcendental educational activities. She had no doubt about the gifts offered by her husband. She knew that he was expert in offering such gifts, and when she understood that he was offering the greatest gift, she was very satisfied. She was overwhelmed with ecstatic love, and therefore she could not reply. Then, with faltering language, just like an attractive wife, she spoke the following words. Sri Devahūti said, "My dear husband, O best of Brahmins, I know that you have achieved perfection and are the master of all the infallible mystic powers because you are under the protection of Yogamaya, the transcendental nature. But you once made a promise that our bodily union should now fulfill. Since children are a great quality for a chaste woman who has a glorious husband." Devahūti expressed her happiness by uttering the word bhatta, for she knew that her husband was in a highly elevated transcendental position and was under the shelter of Yogamaya. As stated in Bhagavad-gītā, those who are great souls, Mahatmas, are not under the control of the material energy. The Supreme Lord has two energies, material and spiritual. The living entities are marginal energy. As marginal energy, a person may be under the control of the material energy up to the spiritual energy, Yogamaya. Kṛṣṇa Muni was a great soul, and therefore he was under the spiritual energy, which means that he was directly connected with the Supreme Lord. The symptom of this is Krishna consciousness, constant engagement in devotional service. This was known to Devahūti, yet she was anxious to have a son by bodily union with the sage. She reminded her husband of his promise to her parents, quote, "I will remain only until the time of Devahūti's pregnancy." She reminded him that for a chaste woman to have a child by a great personality is most glorious. She wanted to be pregnant, and she prayed for that. The word Sri means expansion. By bodily union of the husband and wife, their qualities are expanded. Children are born of good parents. Children born of good parents are expansions of the parents' personal qualifications. Both Kṛṣṇa Muni and Devahūti were spiritually enlightened. Therefore she desired from the beginning that first she be pregnant and then she be empowered with the achievement of God's grace and love of God. For a woman, it is a great ambition to have a son of the same quality as a highly qualified husband. Since she had the opportunity to have Kṛṣṇa Muni as her husband, she also desired to have a child by bodily union. Devahūti continued, "My dear Lord, I am struck by excited emotion for you. Therefore, kindly make whatever arrangements must be made according to the scriptures, so that my skinny body, emaciated through unsatisfied passion, may be rendered fit for you. Also, my Lord, please think of a suitable house for this purpose." The Vedic literatures are not only full of spiritual instruction, but are also instructive in how to prosecute material existence very nicely, with the ultimate aim of spiritual perfection. Devahūti asked her husband, therefore, how to prepare herself for sex life according to the Vedic instructions. Sex life is especially meant for having good children. The circumstances for creating good children are mentioned in Kama Shastra, the scripture in which suitable arrangements are prescribed for factually glorious sex life. Everything needed is mentioned in the scriptures, what sort of house and decorations there should be, what sort of dress the wife should have, how she should be decorated with ointments, scents, and other attractive features, etc. With these requisites fulfilled, the husband will be attracted by her beauty, and a favorable mental situation will be created. The mental situation at the time of sex life may then be transferred into the womb of the wife, and good children can come out of the pregnancy. Here is a special reference to Devahūti's bodily features. Because she had become skinny, she feared that her body might have no attraction for Kṛṣṇa. She wanted to be instructed how to improve her bodily condition in order to attract her husband. Sexual intercourse in which the husband is attracted to the wife is sure to produce a male child, but sexual intercourse based on attraction of the wife for the husband may produce a girl. That is mentioned in the Ayurveda. When the passion of the woman is greater, there is a chance of a girl's being born. When the passion of the man is greater, then there is a possibility of a son. Devahūti wanted the passion of her husband to be increased by the arrangement mentioned in the Kama Shastra. She wanted him to instruct her in that way, and she also requested that he arrange for a suitable house, because the hermitage in which Kṛṣṇa was living was very simple and completely in the mode of goodness, and there was less possibility of passions being aroused in his heart. 12. Maitreya continued, O Vidura, seeking to please his beloved wife, the sage Kṛṣṇa exercised his yogic power, and instantly produced an aerial mansion that could travel at his will. Purport: here the words yogam astita are significant. The sage Kṛṣṇa was completely perfect in yoga. As the result of real yoga practice, there are 8 kinds of perfection. The yogi can become smaller than the smallest, greater than the greatest, or lighter than the lightest. He can achieve anything he likes. He can create even a planet. He can establish influence over anyone, etc. In this way, yogic perfection is achieved, and after this one can achieve the perfection of spiritual life. Thus it was not very wonderful for Kṛṣṇa Muni to create a mansion in the air according to his own desire, to fulfill the desire of his beloved wife. He at once created the palace, which is described in the following verses. It was a wonderful structure bedecked with all sorts of jewels, adorned with pillars of precious stones, and capable of yielding whatever one desired. It was equipped with every form of furniture and wealth, which tended to increase in the course of time. Purport: the castle created in the sky by Kṛṣṇa Muni may be called a castle in the air, but by his mystic power, the yoga Kṛṣṇa Muni actually constructed a huge castle in the air. To our feeble imagination, a castle in the sky is an impossibility, but if we scrutinizingly consider the matter, we can understand that it is not impossible at all. If the Supreme Personality of Godhead can create so many planets, carrying millions of castles in the air, a perfect yogi like Kṛṣṇa Muni can easily construct one castle in the air. The castle is described as sarva-duḥkhāni, yielding whatever one desired. It was full of jewels. Even the pillars were made of pearls and valuable stones. These valuable jewels and stones were not subject to deterioration, but were everlastingly and increasingly opulent. We sometimes hear of castles thus bedecked on the surface of the earth also. The castles constructed by Lord Krishna for his 16,108 wives were so bedecked with jewels that there was no need of a lamplight during the night. The castle was fully equipped with all necessary paraphernalia, and it was pleasing in all seasons. It was decorated all around with flags, festoons, and artistic work of variegated colors. It was further embellished with wreaths of charming flowers that attracted sweetly humming bees, and with tapestries of linen, silk, and various other fabrics. Now we'll take a few reflections or questions. Prabhupada Priya.
Hare Krishna. Something from the beginning of this section. I always puzzled over the relationship between Gandhari and Dhritarashtra, because I would think that if I was blind, I would like my spouse to be able to see so that they could, do things that I couldn't do because of my blindness. And yet it seems like it's more important than her being able to be competent as, a wife or a helper, was that she be inferior to him. So what is the psychology?
That's the psychology.
The most important thing is that the wife be inferior, even if she's rendered useless?
I don't think she ended up being useless.
I mean, I'm just...
And also, I think it's semantics, but it's more in a mood of surface than... I mean, I don't want to parse it too much, but inferior or feeling that... inferior. It was important, especially as a Kshatriya, he's a king, he's already blind. And by her taking that path, she followed her dharma and became so powerful that her vision was empowering to one of her sons, and so forth. I mean, that's the idea.
Yeah, because I know
it's not utilitarian.
I know a devotee couple, and he had a bachelor's degree, she had a master's degree, and she asked me, should I renounce my master's degree?
How do you do that? Throw it in the Ganga?
I guess there's a way that you can just get it off your resume or something, you can no longer claim it as a credential. Anyways, she was willing to do that, and I said, but wouldn't it be in case there was financial difficulty, you could earn more money if you had the master's degree, and that would help him,
Wait, did he want her to get rid of the master's degree?
I don't think he asked her to, but I think it was something that she felt like she should do to make sure the relationship works.
Well, I mean, I don't know the particular circumstance, but I would feel that it would have to do more with the way they interacted than that there be something on record that somebody had gone to school longer than somebody else. It's more an attitude and a sense of cooperation, since there's these different svabhavas, and in order to make a relationship work, there's a sense of give and take on both sides.
But then, wouldn't it be the same with Gandhari and Dhritarashtra? Even though she could see, but couldn't she act in such a way to show that she's submissive and humble and she reveres him?
Maybe to some degree, but the circumstances may be slightly different. Since he's a king, he would have definitely had the throne, but now he doesn't have it. And then also to have a sense that his wife he was dependent on her, could be a little much in those circumstances. When I hear about the Kshatriyas in that period and how developed their Kshatriya natures are, I could really relate to that story and why she would do that willingly, because it's a different world now. Especially, it's a different world, so it's hard to understand how people felt in a culture of bygone ages from our context. Even when I think back to my childhood, there was, even though I grew up in an ultra-liberal family, there was still, the roles were slightly more defined, even in those circumstances. But to speak of 5,000 years ago, when there were hybrid Kshatriyas and hybrid Brahmins and so forth, it would be even more pronounced, that sense. My perspective. Okay, we have Pargarangi. Antriyantariksha, okay. They're trying to mix it up just to fool me.
Hare Krishna, dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my respectful obeisances. Could you elaborate this sentence? Krishna consciousness is the highest gift which can be bestowed on anyone whom we presume to love. 3:23:8.
The clause that we presume to love means if we really love somebody, if we profess that we love somebody, then we should give them the highest thing, and then the highest thing, prema pumartam ahan, beyond all the other ordinary gifts of the world, there's love of God. And that requires that we develop it ourselves so that we can give it to whomever we have professed to have affection for or love for. Let's see, outside People's Party. It's looking pretty. There we go. Go, Paul.
Hare Krishna. Prabhu, the description of the aerial mansion and then the Kama Sastra was mentioned in the purport. It seems to be more like the Pravritti Marg. So I was just wondering how come that materialistic aspect is emphasized?
Well, the whole story is couched in that. And it's that Kardama Muni was highly accomplished yogi. He had meditated for at least 10,000 years, from what I remember. And then he's so accomplished that the Lord appears before him. And then one of the main things he says is, I need a wife. So that in and of itself is seemingly pravritti-ish. And there's a way that now, and just a nuance of this whole thing, it's interesting that she has to come and ask, because he's the one who asked her for a wife in the first place, and then she's and now it almost seems like, oh yeah, I forgot. And it's leading somewhere. So there is a sense of Pravritti Marg, but it's showing it, meaning the Bhagavatam showing us how Pravritti Marg becomes purified. In fact, Bhagavatam showing us how everything becomes purified and ultimately brings us to Krishna consciousness. And we can also contrast this story with the story we heard with Diti, because the mood is different here, isn't it? They're both going to conceive, but the mood is different, and how the circumstances of the conception. This one, although it's Pravritti Marg, the other one would have seemed more like some kind of vikarma, resulting in the offspring that we've all come to know and love, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. And now we're going to get God appearing in the world. So it can't be all bad. And the Pravritti Marg is also a marg. It's a marg that is recommended for most people to be able to live their life, but then to transform it into God consciousness. Because most people do what they're going to do, which is live their lives as human beings. So they have to have a path so that they can righteously engage in whatever things they have to do. And then the result comes, which is Kapiladev. God appears. Dharma viruddho bhuteshu, Krishna says in the Gita, I am that sex life which is dedicated to Dharma. So it's definitely pravritti, but it also leads to the appearance of the Lord. Okay? Oh, thanks. Got a thumbs up. Okay.
The question regarding the blessing which Kardama Muni gave to Devahūti was that she can have prema, that she can achieve the highest goal. So he willingly gave her this blessing because he was fully pleased with her service. But we can see from the story that she did not actually achieve this prema until much, much later. And even in between, it seems that as if she needed more instruction from Kapiladev, from Lord Kapiladev, to actually really so that prema was really manifested. So my question here is, why has this happened, and is this connected maybe with her desire to have a child before, and was this, from her point of view, material desire?
Well, everybody starts from where they are. And Krishna says to Uddhava in the 11th canto of the Bhagavad, Tam Sway Sway Adhikaraya Nishta Saguna Parikirtita. That if you start your practice of devotional service from your qualification now, from your adhikari, at this, wherever you are now, he said that's saguna parikirtita. It's a good quality, and it will become fruitful. And most of the stories we'll hear in the Bhagavatam, including even Shukadeva Goswami, the devotees or future devotees start from either a deficit or from a slight misconception, and they need alignment. The story, for instance, of Bharat Maharaj is that he had to go through a couple more lifetimes in order to come to the perfectional stage that he reached as Jad Bharat. And then, of course, Shukadev was more impersonally oriented when he was born, and then he came back into the fold, or he came to the fold of bhakti. He was converted by his father. So everybody starts from where they are, and Devahūti is no exception. She's in the course of her life. It's similar to what Gopal asked about Pravriti Marg. Most people start from that marg, unless they have some scars from a previous life. And then those become purified by engagement in Krishna consciousness. And when you say she attained perfection much, much later, it couldn't have been that much later because it's still in the Bhagavatam. And so the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained that bhakti lata, bij, that seed, can be received. The blessing one receives is, what Prabhupada says, is the instruction that one gets. And if one faithfully accepts the instruction and doesn't try to pervert it by one's own will or one's own perverted will, no, that's redundant. If one doesn't misuse the instruction, if one accepts it as it is and cultivates it as a good gardener, then it'll grow into prema. But it starts as a seed, and then it has to be watered. And one also has to weed. And that's why Lord Caitanya gave that metaphor of the garden. So that's, I think, universal. We don't find instances where someone gives a benediction and instantly the person becomes noticeably a pure devotee. It takes a little while to sink in. Dhruva Maharaj is there. Vritrasura, of course, Chitraketu, he started off as a very attached person, and then he shook the attachment, he started his mantras, then he got cursed, then he took birth as Vritrasura. He went through a lot, don't you think? And then finally achieved that perfectional stage. Even some of the great Mahajans, Bhishma Dev, he was put on a bed of arrows in the final chapter of his life, and partly because he was on the wrong side of the law. And he was still a Mahajan. We had Narada, and then we'll go to Devavrata. Hope that helped.
I was thinking about idea earlier about Gandhari. And I remember Srila Prabhupada saying that that was his favorite character in the Mahabharata. I was trying to find the reference for it. I haven't found it yet, but when I do, I can bring it up. But I did find a purport where Prabhupada talks about Gandhari in 1.9.48. I'm going to read it if that's okay.
Please.
Gandhari was a powerful ascetic. Although she was living the life of a faithful wife and a kind mother, it is said that Gandhari also voluntarily closed her eyes because of the blindness of her husband. A wife's duty is to follow the husband cent per cent, and Gandhari was so true to her husband that she followed him even in his perpetual blindness. Therefore, in her actions, she was a great ascetic. Besides that, the shock she suffered because of the wholesale killing of her 100 sons and her grandsons also was certainly too much for a woman, but she suffered all this just like an ascetic. Gandhari, although a woman, is no less than Bhishmadev in character. They are both remarkable personalities in the Mahabharata. Thinking that the idea of renunciation isn't necessarily about the external position, but about the actions. The internal consciousness might be renounced, but the action performed might be different.
Mm-hmm.
But both are equally
nice
glorious.
Citation. Very helpful. Okay, Devavrata.
Just on your theme of the circumstances of the Bhagavatam, the grandfather of Dhruva Maharaj is really interesting because, grandfather of Prithu Maharaj, King Angada, is that what it? King Anga. He saw the circumstance of Vena, and he took that as the marker to move ahead. But at that point, he was just hoping he would have a proper son and the kingdom and all of this. But when it didn't work out, he took the cue. So, as you're saying, the Bhagavatam is really not full of straight stories. They're generally crooked stories, and how people get straightened out in the process.
Maharajanga story is the epitome of his it didn't work out. The father of cruel Vena. Avadut.
Just on this topic of the path of renunciation and the path of enjoyment, I was thinking about yesterday we were mentioning about seeing all these pilgrims go around the Marg, and how you were mentioning that they actually do it for a holiday. But we see in the West, people go to Disneyland and Disney World, and for them it's all a lost cause unless they come in contact with a great soul like Divyanga Prabhu.
In the parking lot.
And get one of Srila Prabhupada's books.
Thank you. That was great. Okay.
Yeah, I was just looking at text 8, and the translation here, Kardama Muni is saying, "What is the use of enjoyments other than the Lord's grace? All material achievements are subject to be annihilated simply by a movement of the eyebrows of Lord Vishnu." So it's just kind of ironic that he says this. What is the use of enjoyments other than the Lord's grace? And then he produces this whole aerial mansion that's purely for enjoyment. And then they take it to, the gardens where the apsaras, the heavenly beings, enjoy their frolic, So he says it, and then they just get into very deep enjoyment and making efforts to create all kinds of facility for that enjoyment. So it doesn't seem to add up.
Well, I think it's in the same context, because the way Pravritti Marg is presented in the Bhagavatam is that you're on the path of enjoyment, but because it's related to Krishna, apichet siddharacharo bhajate mamananya bhak sadareva samantabhya samyag vyavasito. Everything's about your intention. And because the intention's there, then the external circumstances become insignificant. And Sri Prabhavati Dharmatma, Shashvas Shantim Nigachati, Kontiyat Pratijanihi Nami Bhakti Pranashati. There's a way in which Krishna continues saying there that whatever Sudharatra is there, and that the definition of whatever that is it depends on the context, is going to be cleared up very quickly, he said, because of the intention being properly aligned. I think it's really the ornament of the culture we have. Before studying bona fide Krishna consciousness, I got the impression that it was either there's an on-off switch. You're either completely renounced and you had to give up everything, or you're just a materialist and you're totally lost. But the concept where Prabhupada talks about you can be a grihastha brahmachari idea, or that whatever position of life you're in, it can be completely productive based on how it's centered around Krishna, all the way, tracing all the way back to Krishna's very accommodating language in the Bhagavad-gītā, yet karoshi adashneshi juhosi dadasiyat, etc., or his starting with think of me always, or at least practice thinking of me, or at least give a little donation, or okay, just volunteer for something, to okay, here's some other methods you can try to get in the game. It's all goes to the power of Krishna consciousness, which Prabhupada mentions very specifically. Even if somebody's a householder in the process of Krishna consciousness, they'll come to the perfect stage because of the power of the Krishna consciousness itself, because of the power of Krishna. What to speak if somebody has some svabhava that seems to be prohibitive, like for Thanksgiving, their family has dogs.
Could we say then that? Yeah. Could we say then that when he says, "What is the use of enjoyments other than the Lord's grace?" that he's seeing these enjoyments that he's about to create as the Lord's grace? Like this is all kit and caboodle, part and parcel of the Lord's grace that now we're going to enjoy and then we're going to conceive.
You could, because it's a dharma virodhavaputeshu. There's a way in which Krishna says in the Bhagavad-gītā, if you're engaged in sex and the reason is because you want to have a Krishna conscious child, he said, that's me. So it's not prohibitive. Yeah. Okay, a few more verses, but we'll take a Gauranga stretch. Gauranga. Kṛṣṇa, where are we? Uh-oh. If there's a stitch in time, we are. I think we're on 16? Final answer? 16, final answer. The palace looked charming, with beds, couches, fans, and seats, all separately arranged in 7 stories. Purport: it is understood from this verse that the castle had many stories. The words uparayupati vinyasta indicate that skyscrapers are not newly invented. Even in those days, millions of years ago, the idea of building many-storied houses was current. They contained not merely 1 or 2 rooms, but many different apartments, and each was completely decorated with cushions, bedsteads, sitting places, and carpets. Its beauty was enhanced by artistic engravings here and there on the walls. The floor was of emerald with coral daisies. At the present moment, people are very fond of their architectural art, yet floors are generally decorated with colored cement. It appears, however, that the castle constructed by the yogic powers of Kardama Muni had floors of emerald with coral daisies. The palace was very beautiful, with its coral thresholds at the entrances and its doors bedecked with diamonds. Gold pinnacles crowned its domes of sapphire. With the choicest rubies set in its diamond walls, it appeared as though possessed of eyes. It was furnished with wonderful canopies and greatly valuable gates of gold. Artistic jewelry and decorations giving the appearance of eyes are not imaginary. Even in recent times, the Mughal emperors constructed their palaces with decorations of jeweled birds with eyes made of valuable stones. The stones have been taken away by the authorities, but the decorations are still present in some of the castles constructed by the Mughal emperors in New Delhi. The royal palaces were built with jewels and rare stones resembling eyes, and thus at night they would give off